Well, welcome back to the second installment of the Changemakers interview series. This series highlights leaders who are creating a brighter future for all, and especially during this pandemic where it is so easy to lose motivation. We're so excited to use this platform to show that we can still make a difference. And our core mission at Sahasra Deepika is to educate and empower. So again, we're so excited to have this opportunity to continue learning and also to show that education can happen anywhere and in many forms.
And as interns at SDI, or Sahasra Deepika, and advocates of its mission of empowering girls, Neha and I are so interested in learning about how your various initiatives are contributing to the upliftment and the empowerment of girls in creative and diverse ways. So thank you so much again for being here today. Neha and I will be co-hosting this Changemakers interview. Neha is an amazing junior at Brown University studying public health and journalism and is on the pre-med track. And I'm a sophomore at Johns Hopkins studying political science. And we're so excited to interview Deepika and Malavika, sisters who are already changing the world through their organizations, Coder Chicks and Homegirl. They are chosen for their prestigious Her Lead Fellowship, a collaboration between Vital Voices Global Partnership and Ascena Retail Group. And Her Lead Fellows are empowered and equipped with leadership skills to affect global progress. So, congratulations on being Her Lead Fellows. Tell us a little bit more about yourselves and your backgrounds, and where did you guys grow up?
Thank you so much for having us. This is such a cool organization, and you both seem like incredible young leaders. So I'm Malavika. I am 19 years old. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a rising second year at Stanford University. And my passion is getting girls of color involved in politics and literature and other forms of change making. So when I was in high school, I founded and directed an organization called Homegirl Project that delivers political leadership training and community building for girls of color. And I am also a writer passionate about tackling race and gender and culture in Gen Z through storytelling.
Yeah, my name is Deepika. I'm a 11th grader at Seminole High School, and I also use she, her pronouns. So I started Coder Chicks in ninth grade of high school, and I started it because I wanted to empower young girls to enter the computer science field, because right now there are barely any girls in the tech field, and I noticed this in several occasions, such as science fair competitions or even internships, how few girls there are. So Coder Chicks just helps mentor and empower girls to learn how to code.
With these organizations both sound so amazing, and especially how they're so focused on uplifting girls. So yeah, Deepika, we wanted to start with you and ask, how did you get started coding yourself, and what was that first initial step that you took to start your organization?
Well, the first initial step I took was in 7th grade, and I was 13. I went to a computer science camp at the University of Central Florida. And it's funny because my mom actually wanted me to do it, and then I went there and then I hated it because there were no girls, there was only boys, and I felt so embarrassed. I didn't know who to talk to, and I was really shy and quiet. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And she's like, you should do it. So then I kept going at it, and then in the end I got to make a video game, and I was like, wait, this is actually so cool. I get there are no girls there, so it's kind of more difficult to make friends, but at least I was able to make something amazing out of it. So then after that, I was able to empower more girls to also pursue computer science.
And then how have you seen the organization grow over time?
Yes, we started off as an after-school club at a middle school, and it only had 10 girls. And then after that, I realized that the girls really enjoyed it. And they also enjoyed computer science more when they're able to work together and empower each other, instead of being a competitive environment with not a lot of friends. So then after that, I was able to have bigger events. So instead of 10 girls after school, it'd be a Saturday for 5 hours with at least 50 girls. So I was able to have a few events like that.
That sounds awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so the next question is for Malavika. The Homegirl Project, so it empowers women of color by sharing their stories and uplifting their voices. So how does storytelling, in your opinion, change our perceptions of ourselves and of those around us?
Yeah, I think storytelling is an incredible tool for activism because it allows us to build empathy, to see ourselves celebrated, to really disrupt and reclaim unhealthy narratives. And I think often of a Toni Cade Bambara quote, the role of the cultural worker is to make the revolution irresistible. So I think that empowering people to take control of their own narratives, to center themselves, is the first step to creating this kind of broader movement-wide framework for change.
Definitely, that's so true. And as a follow-up to that, in a world that's so driven by more quantitative facts and data, oftentimes those are the things that those are the standards that we hold the production of knowledge to. What place do stories and more anecdotal data have in not only structural change, but also more relevant to right now and political organization?
Yeah, well, I mean, I definitely don't see those things as separate. Like, I think there's behind, like, for example, like in the world of like social justice work, which is where I'm part of, we have these statistics that drive us to perform change, whether it's like the statistics about like the disenfranchisement of like people of color for voting, whether it's like the like really disheartening statistics about who's represented in our government. But I also think that behind those statistics is this like broader narrative of justice, right? And that's what's been bringing people to do the work every day. So I think definitely that stories help us find meaning and help us like put names and definitions to like various problems that we see in our society, and also gives us like the tools and the framework to fight back against them.
Thank you. That's so true.
Yeah, and I think it's really spectacular how you both have, created these organizations that, have not only maybe enhanced your own passions, but have also helped so many others. And, one thing that we were wondering is that during this, time during the pandemic, where we're seeing so many devastating effects, in terms of actual sickness and then, financial hardship and, seeing people suffering, how are you, finding motivation to continue making a difference, and how have your organizations continued over this time?
Yeah, well, I think especially with tech jobs, they're so important right now, getting information to people, like, especially as the virus gets worse, like to tell people like what the right thing to do is. So with Coder Chicks, I'm planning on having an event later, like in 2 months online, and it'll be like an event where girls can learn how to make apps. And I actually had a similar event to this last year, where I taught a workshop online for young women of how teaching them how to make apps, and it went really well. So I'm thinking about having a similar workshop next month.
Yeah, that sounds great, especially since it's so accessible.
Exactly. And actually, the workshop I had last year, the same app development one, I was able to get a very wide audience range. Like, I had some women attending from Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, so I was able to get like a wide variety of people.
Wow, that's so cool. And I feel like especially during this time where I think one of the good parts about this is that you can meet and connect with people from across the world, like you were saying, and spread your impact that way, and spread the love, spread the happiness, and lots of people don't have anything else to do, honestly. So it's a great way to just get the message out there. And I'm so happy that you've been met with such great success and you will be moving forward. So both of you both have clearly inspired so many young girls, including myself, to make a difference. So do you have any advice for them? If you could give them a single piece of advice, what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a good question. And I think like both of us are very much in the beginning of our journeys and still figuring out a lot of things. But I think something that I've really been tapping into a lot recently, especially like in the pandemic, is this idea of mutual aid, right? Like that, like together that there are a lot of problems in our society, but like we within us, like as people and as communities, have everything we need to provide for ourselves and to take care of each other. So I think this idea of like collective care, this idea of like reaching into your community for resources, redistributing what you have, is something that I have found to be one of the most powerful principles of organizing. And that's something I would advise other people to look into, this idea of like mutual care. How can we make change making as collaborative and as caretaking as possible?
Definitely. Yeah, Deepika, do you have any piece of advice?
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, because even with the Coder Chicks events, at the end, we'd always have the girls work together in like small groups to create a project that has a social benefit, like using the coding language they learned during that event. So I think like definitely collaboration and working with other people who like are able to respect and understand your ideas definitely makes a big difference.
For sure. Yeah, that's so true. And I especially think being in the US right now, that whole principle of mutual aid is something that we're really seeing, especially in our hyper individualistic society. I think that's a really important principle to bring out, and it's super necessary to carry us forward. And I guess going off of that, maybe it might be like repetitive, but what's the best piece of advice you've ever received, or something that someone said to you or a group of people like over the years, like a common theme that you've just taken to heart? and have manifested in all your work?
Yeah, this is such a good question. I mean, there are so many like amazing pieces of advice that I've received in my life, but let me think on this one for you. I want to give you guys a good one.
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah, I think one of the best pieces of advice I got was, I mean, I haven't been a lot for that many years, but like, I think when I was in the computer science camp in 7th grade, my mom told me to keep going. And it's like, it's just important because, especially when you try new things, sometimes the beginning, especially when you're in such a situation that doesn't really like make you feel very heard. Like at that camp, there were barely any girls. There's like 2 girls in total. Um, it's like important to keep going, and then once you're able to accomplish it and like see the end result, you can help other girls who are also in a similar position also get there. So I think it's important just to keep on going and see what's there at the end.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think for me, well, I don't know if this falls directly in the advice category, but like something that I consider to be like a really good foundation principle is like this quote from Toni Morrison, like if you have power, your job is to empower someone else. If you're free, your job is to free someone else. And she said that in the context of like teaching her students that like once you get these jobs that you've so brilliantly trained for, like your job is to not just open the door for yourself, it's to hold it open and to usher more people in behind you. I think, and that general sensitivity, I think, is like the best advice I've ever gotten. I've definitely gotten it from organizations like Her Lead, which are like dedicated to empowering women, not as individuals, but in waves and like in collective like pushes forward. So I think that's the best advice I've ever gotten, is to like is to view this as like a collective effort, that we hold the door open for other people, not just ourselves.
Yeah, I think that is spectacular advice, and definitely, advice that other people can take to heart, and also hopefully, go forward making a difference. And to switch gears a little bit, Malavika, I've actually read some of your writing, and I'm a big fan of yours, and really appreciate
Thank you.
some of the stories that you've told. So I was just curious, how do you decide, what stories are worth telling, and how do you tell them in a way that allows people to relate to them?
Yeah, that's such a good question. So at least for me, like I've always been very interested in writing about the experiences of like my lived experiences and those of like the people around me, which generally tend not to be the experiences that are written about often in mainstream media. So like I'm very intentional. I like to write about Gen Z takes on politics and culture. I like to write about South Asian women in the diaspora. I like to write about like girls of color and our experiences. And those have been the topics that I've loved writing about and that you may have read. So I think for me, those are the stories that are like worth telling. And I also think that like I guess for how I put those stories out there, I think very much like this idea of like using our lived experiences as a form of expertise. So like writing with authority about our lives and like trusting that like people will relate to it. And I think just this idea of like of telling the stories of marginalized people in a way that like disrupts narratives, I think always resonates with people.
Yeah, that's so true. And it's funny because my first day of classes were yesterday, and I'm taking a class on political theory, and I'm reading an essay by Isaiah Berlin, who was like a philosopher. And I was just reading, it was a really long paper, but the one thing I got from it is that a critical part of theory and of practice is to base it in personal experience. I think that's something that is oftentimes overlooked, because you have a group of people who are kind of like considered the elite, I guess, that are so fragmented from the rest of the world or the rest of the people they're governing. And they really, I basically was trying to say that I think what you mentioned about personal experiences, the lived experiences, being critical in making policy or in shaping change, I think that's such an important aspect of politics, of diplomacy, of everything.
Yes, I guess, moving on a bit, you both have done such amazing individual projects, but I think something else that's really special is that you both are sisters, and, have probably supported each other a lot along the way. So we'd love to hear, I guess, from both of you what that experience has been like.
Yeah, I think like definitely being the younger sibling, it's nice to have like an older sibling who you can look up to, and also like someone who give you advice and stuff. So I think it's nice like knowing that it's possible to like, it's also like the way she teaches me about how to like the best ways to like empower girls, and like how like especially the problems we have right now. So I think it's just really helpful.
Yeah, and I mean, I think as the older sister, it's always just so nice to have like a partner in crime, right? To have someone to work with, so like, especially in the pandemic, right, where we've all kind of been like we're back home, we're like back within like our family units. I think having like a comrade and like someone who like cares about the issues as much as I do to work with and to learn with together is like such a lucky experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I'm sure my sister, who's the same, I think we have the same age differences,
Yeah.
would probably be, she'd probably say the same thing because she's being nice. But it definitely is so nice to have a sibling around to keep you company, to uplift each other, have your backs no matter what. But those are all of the questions we had for today. We won't take up any more of your time, but it was such an honor to get to interview both of you. And we wish you all the best in both of your educational careers, your future careers, your projects. It's been so amazing having you on this Changemakers interview.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.